These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old days when we could hug and kiss. Back to gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet the darker in the way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing. Cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we all stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to 6 Feet Apart Productions. We are really thrilled you're here and so grateful for the support you're showing storytelling. Now, we want to say hello to, obviously, everybody watching on YouTube. Hope you're having we will have a lovely time. Tell us where you're from, what your name is, and where you're watching from in the country, who you're watching with, anything like that. And it's always lovely if you can put some love in the chat, because the storytellers would always like to go back and see it afterwards. Now, I'm going to just wave now at our backstage audience, which is mostly our storytellers and a few very honoured guests. So, hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. We're looking forward to a really great show. Now, before we start, I just want to point out that some of our stories may not be fit for younger or very young ears. So if you've got kids around, then just know you might want to move them to a different room. I mean, they're not necessarily adult, but just in case. Okay, so this show came about because we've got a link on our website because we had a bright idea thinking, wouldn't it be nice if people just pitched us a story? And then these four tellers are on tonight did just that, and we loved their story ideas. And so we thought, we'll do a show. So, and we're really, really excited to have such excellent quality of storytellers. And once you've heard their stories, I think you're going to agree. Now, as usual, I'm going to bring each storyteller on one at a time to our virtual stage, and I'm going to ask them a couple of little personal questions, nothing too personal, you'll be all right, and just find out a bit more about them, and then they'll tell their story. Okay, so on with the show. So first up, we have the wonderful Jane Dorfman, who I finally had the good fortune to meet in person at the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesborough, and that was just last year. And it was just really nice to meet her. We ate, we listened to stories, and we chatted with other people, so it was so good. Now, Jane tells wonderful traditional tales, rich with detail, lots of humour, lots of creative ways to bring her characters to life. And she also tells personal stories, she'll be telling them tonight, and apparently has recently taken to lying, although I'm not sure whether to believe her or not. She performs all over the world, both in person and virtually, telling at festivals, libraries, and shows like ours. So I'm delighted to invite Jane to our virtual stage, and I shall ask her a couple of questions. So welcome, Jane Dorfman. Hi, Jane. How are you?
So much. I'm doing good. Really happy to be here.
Oh, well, it's lovely to see you. Yeah. And sadly, we're not in person, in person next to each other, but lovely to see you. Now, you recently went to Northern Ireland, didn't you, Jane? And you told a story. Yeah, with the incredible Liz Weir. Now, if anybody doesn't know Liz Weir, she's from Northern Ireland, and she is just like a whirlwind of storytellers, and she supports storytellers, doesn't she? So, Liz, tell us a bit more, Jane, about Liz, and also what was a standout moment for you when you were over there?
Yeah, she really is. I mean, she's a wonderful teller in her own right, but she brings people into storytelling. I was a featured teller at a festival called the Glens of Antrim. And it's not a tent festival. She goes around to all these little towns, Ballymena, Ballycastle, Cushendall, so that everybody gets to hear live storytelling. And the audience is there. That was probably one of my standouts. They listen. They're like sucking the story up. It was just amazing. I think it's one of these audiences. I mean, they have a long tradition of storytelling, but I think they've kind of been brought up with storytelling. And it's really amazing. I was so welcome. I've never told more in my life. I mean, I was at least twice a day. And yeah, it was a lot. So
They
they
keep
do
up
one
quite a
of the
schedule, don't they?
was quite a schedule. Yeah. I had one little time to go see a tourist thing in Northern Ireland, and I went to the Giant's Causeway, which was really quite wonderful. I took the bus there. The way back, I was 40p short, 40 pennies short, and they wouldn't let me back on till I went further down the road and went to an ATM machine.
A 40p? That's a bit mean.
Yes, I considered begging on the bus. You got a penny, you got a penny. I had I had pounds, but I didn't have. I mean, I had euros, but not enough pounds.
Well,
And
that's a bit mean. It's not very welcoming, is it?
but I got to see Bushmills, which is where I hear a famous whiskey is brewed.
Yes, it is.
Gone to, but it was a great trip. And then I had a couple days afterwards in Dublin to knock around on my own.
Oh, so nice. I have to the embarrassing admission to say that I've never actually been to Ireland. It was always on my doorstep. But I'll just go next year, and then of course ended up in California.
It is on your doorstep. Yeah, you should zip over.
I know. I will. I'll make that a mission.
Great.
Now, our second question, which we're going to ask all the tellers, is: it's February, Valentine's Day, and love, and all that sort of stuff. So, do you have like a fun, memorable moment that you've got?
Well, my husband and I, we do love fine. We don't do romance. I mean, we got married on Groundhog's Day. And it's easy to remember because when they start talking about Groundhog's Day, it reminds us, our anniversary is coming. But yeah, it's a comfortable relationship. Been married for more than 40 years.
Wow.
And yeah, so even without all those flash in the pan things, it's worked well. We met at a baseball game. I got a black eye because the ball bounced out of my glove and hit me in the face.
Oh,
yeah, it was a mixed men and women baseball. And some of those guys, they just hit the ball way too hard. I couldn't catch that thing. And I was in right field. I mean, the balls shouldn't have even been coming there, but yeah. But anyway, that's about as romance and lovey as I get.
Well, that's okay. 40 years worth. I don't think you're doing too badly, let me tell you.
Yeah, no.
Okay, lovely. All right then, Jane, thank you. Lovely to get you to know you just a bit better. So everyone, we're going to sit back and get ready to hear Jane tell, and she's going to tell two stories: the drug sniffing dog and the sleazy red shirt. So I can't wait to hear both of those.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this first story happened not too far before the pandemic, and I was going down to North Carolina for a storytelling festival. And it was in Baltimore, Washington Airport. I was just tying my shoes back up, and I looked down at my feet, and there was a beagle. She was practically sitting on my feet. Now, I know from my nephew that when you were stopped by a drug-sniffing dog at the airport, they sit on your feet. Now, never mind how he knows, and I don't want his mother to find out that I've been spreading it around, but there was this beagle doing this kind of beagle smile, an elderly beagle, and she had a lot of gray around her muzzle. And when I looked up behind her, there was this enormous man in a flak jacket with DEA across the front. And he had a gun, and he had handcuffs, and he had a bunch of zip ties, enough for a drug cartel. And he said, "Sadie here has discovered something of interest in your bag. Will you please come with me?" So I pulled up the handle on my little red suitcase, and I followed him and Sadie, and slowly though, because she was a somewhat elderly dog. And we went up to one of those doors you see in the airport: authorized personnel only, alarm will sound. And he keyed us in, and he went down the hall, and I followed them. And if you've ever wondered about these spaces, they're nowhere near as nice as the airport. Linoleum floors, fluorescent lights, and metal door after metal door with a little window in it. He led me into one with an open door, and he said, still using his outside voice, "Put your suitcase up on the bench and keep your hands inside at all times." So I put my suitcase up and I unzipped it, and Sophie went to town. She was so happy. She was wagging her tail. She drooled on my nightgown. She drooled on the shirt I had actually ironed, and she zeroed in on my travel kit. Now, I have to tell you something, that I had recently started using CBD ointment for some pain in my wrists. And to cut to the chase, I took the travel kit and I opened it up and I brought out the little jar. The stuff comes in a big container like a shoe polish can, but It's so expensive. So I had just scooped out a little and put it in a tiny jar. And I took the lid off, and Sophie wagged more and more and more and looked more and more excited. And I held it out to her, and she opened her mouth really wide, and she ate the jar. Drop it, Sophie, drop it. Sophie did not drop it. Spit it out, Sophie. And he tried that thing on the corners of the mouth to force her mouth open. He said, what's in that stuff? And I said, CBD ointment. And all of a sudden, Sophie gave a big gulp, and she swallowed the jar. Now, her handler looked like he might cry. He picked her up and clutched her against his chest and ran out into the hall calling, Tina, Tina, I need you. And he didn't come back. And he didn't come back. And, they hadn't taken my name. The stuff is really perfectly legal in the whole country. I had a plane to catch. So I looked out in the hall and I didn't see anybody. And I zipped up my little red suitcase and I pulled up the handle and I left the room. Now, I had been kind of flustered when I came in, so I didn't know which way to go, and I picked the wrong way. And I was passing door after door, storage rooms marked knitting needles and nail clippers, a whole one of shampoo and conditioner. And I saw a barrel full of Swiss Army knives. But eventually, way down at the end of the hall, I saw another one of those push bar doors, and I headed for it as fast as I could. And for your general knowledge, the alarm seems to only sound on the way in, not on the way out. And I pulled out with my suitcase and I looked, and I was really a long way from my gate, but I could follow the numbers. And I went pulling the suitcase as fast as I could. And the numbers were coming down to mine, and the gate was empty. But the desk staff were waving me on like I was coming in as the runner in a race. And they quickly scanned my boarding pass. They shooed me down the entry galley, the entry hall, and I ran as fast as I could. And I got on the plane. And I could hear the pilot telling the stewardesses to arm the doors for takeoff. Now there was an aisle seat. And this part you are never going to believe, but there was actually room in the overhead bin for my suitcase. And I was so pumped up that I picked up that suitcase up over my head and I slam dunked it into the overhead compartment, slammed it shut, and sat down and buckled up and closed my eyes because I had just been hauled away by the Drug Enforcement Administration and I didn't want to make eye contact with anyone. Now, I wished Sadie well. I hope if she had some problems with her hips or her little paws, maybe it would help. But I didn't know the end of the story until I got to where I was going. And I was in the place where I was staying, and I was taking out my shirt to dry it off and hang it up. And I flicked on the television. Now, it was the nightly news, but do you know how they put in those little funny stories just to keep you going through all the grim news? And I was putting away something when I heard drug-sniffing dog in Baltimore swallows the evidence, seems to have discovered the fountain of youth. And I wheeled around, and there was Sadie. She was frisking around. She was wagging her tail, putting her paws down just like a puppy. And there was her handler, and he was actually smiling. And when he held a little dog treat up above her nose, she rose up on her hind legs and she pranced around like a circus dog. Well, that ointment has not really worked for me yet, but I still have hope. And that's the end of the drug sniffing dog. Now, my next story also has some red in it. Oh, thank you. But not the happy, pleasant red of my suitcase. No, this has a red like the blood when you cut your finger, shockingly red, that you just can't believe anything that red. I'll start out when I was in high school. Now, I went to an all-girls high school. It was public, but we had a very strict dress code. No pants, no tight shirts, no tight skirts. Your hemline had to be 2 inches above the knee or more, or less, actually. And it was given to the math teachers to measure this. When a girl knelt on the floor, the bottom of her skirt should touch the floor. And if it did not, you were given a pair of scissors and sent to the bathroom to pull out the hem. Now, I don't know why the math teachers got to do this. Maybe they were the only ones with rulers or had measurement skills, or they were the only ones tough enough not to do a plea bargain. But you could see girls all through the halls with dangling hemlines. It became something of a badge of honor. How many did you have to take down this week? But by the time my daughter went to school, now they couldn't wear T-shirts with anything ugly, no ugly words, no ugly pictures on it. And in sort of a retro solution, they would send them to the bathroom and they'd have to turn the T-shirt inside out. I imagine they couldn't wear swimwear, but other than that, anything goes, and the parents were on their own. Now, my daughter had some birthday money, and she wanted to go to the mall with her friend and go shopping. Now, she probably went to some store like Torrid or Hot Topic or Forever 21 or Rue. And to those of you without teenage daughters, you might think I am making up those names, but I am not. It was there that she purchased the sleazy red shirt. She had cashed the checks lovingly written to her by her grandmother and her great aunt, and they were probably sent to her in birthday cards with kittens and puppies on them saying, "Oh, to the sweetest little girl in the world." And that's what she came home with. She tried it on for me. It was the color of blood. It was thin, clingy fabric with short sleeves and a deep V-neck, and it laced up the front with red cord, and the slit went almost to the navel. And I said, "Tighten up the cord." And she said, "You can't, it bunches up the fabric." She was right, it did. Now, I had already lost the battle of platform shoes and said, "All right, go ahead, break your ankle." And I had lost the battle of visible bra straps. When she bought a bra that came with 3 different straps, flowered, lace, and clear, she said, "You see, they're meant to show." And had we had a different sort of relationship, I would have marched her back to the store, slapped the shirt down on the counter and said, "Give her her money back." But we didn't have that kind of relationship. So she came down the next Monday morning. Now, I must tell you that my daughter had seemingly developed overnight. She had acquired what our elderly pediatrician called her secondary sex characteristics, little pop-up breasts, a waist, hips. I remember when that happened to me, and I was dismayed. I felt like my body was rushing me out of my childhood and giving me something horrible to look forward to every month. But my daughter seemed to welcome it. And she came down in the sleazy red shirt, showing about an inch of skin all the way down to the navel. Now, she had on regular jeans and non-platform shoes. She had on a lot of badly applied eye makeup. And again, had I been a different sort of mother, I would have said, "Get back to your room, young lady. You think you're going to school like that? You have another think coming." But I didn't. And she left for school. And I might lie and say that I worried about it all day, but I didn't really. I did have a pleasant little fantasy that the school would call me and tell me to bring some appropriate clothes for my daughter, but they didn't seem to care either. What I did get was at 3:00, a daughter who came looking like she had run home from the bus stop. She was not exactly crying, but she was all hot around the eyes. She dropped her backpack in the doorway and ran upstairs and came down sometime later in her father's old college sweatshirt and big raccoon eyes, what mascara gives you as a gift when you cry while wearing it. I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Nothing. And I laid out all the best snacks. And she ate like she had never seen food. And it is, in fact, my opinion that she probably spent her lunch period hiding in the bathroom. I don't know what happened to the sleazy red shirt. My kids very early in life began to do their own laundry, so I didn't see it in the laundry. You ask how early? There was a step stool in front of the washing machine, and I brought little detergent squares that you just tossed in. Now, the rule in our house was when you're finished with one machine, you move it to the next, and when you're finished with the dryer, you get your stuff out so somebody else can use it. Now, I had a load of wet laundry. Her stuff was still in the dryer. So I pulled it out and I plumped it on top, and maybe something fell behind the dryer, but I I had a sprained ankle, and even if I had been inclined to move the dryer, I couldn't do it. So when I went upstairs, I said, your clothes were still in the dryer, and now they're on top, unfolded, and maybe something fell behind it. And she said, I bet it was my red shirt. You hate that shirt. I have never disappeared my children's clothes. It was done to me as a child. I can remember some little sky blue socks that I just loved, and I would love to look down at my feet and see those socks, and after a while they were gone. And so was my cowboy shirt, for that matter. But I was guiltless in this. It hadn't really occurred to me to do that. And anyway, it would not be the honest thing for me to do, but I had not knowingly done it. But as I say, she never wore the shirt again. So did she put it in the charity bag that's in the front closet? Did she put it in one of those donation boxes you see on the street corners? And do I need to feel bad for some mother low on funds who has to buy her daughter clothes in the thrift store? Or worse, some mother in a third world country that they are all arguing with their children about this sleazy red shirt? I don't know. I wish I had a photograph of it, though. Just in case she ever has a daughter of her own, I could show her the picture of the infamous sleazy red shirt. Thank you. Need to do that. Need to do.
Oh, that was excellent. Jane, thank you so much. I love that. Pop-up breasts. I want some pop-up breasts. Sadly, they're sag-down breasts now. Oh, that was so wonderful. And the drug-sniffing dog. I'm going to believe it. I choose to believe it. Yeah. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I like the sound that it might be true. Thank you, Jane. That was wonderful. Okay, let's carry on. So our next storyteller is the lovely Holly Robison. Now, Holly actually was back on our show back in November 2020 when we were still doing Sunday night stories. So it's so exciting to have her back on our show again. Now, Holly's not only a fabulous storyteller, but she's a musician and a presenter. And as she says, first and foremost, a wife and mother. So lovely. She offers workshops for beginning storytellers as well as others, I noticed, including body language. Now, I've always found that fascinating, so I might have to pop along to that one. She's been telling stories of all kinds for over 20 years, which I think she must be a liar as well, because she only looks like she's just popped out of college. So please welcome to our virtual stage, Holly Robison.
Good evening.
Hello, young and youthful Holly. How are you?
I am just dandy, and you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Now, as I was saying, Holly, you tell traditional stories and personal stories, just like Jane. But how do you decide which genre to tell and when?
Well, I thought I would tell you a little bit about my progression, because when I first started telling stories, I only told traditional stories because I didn't have any self-confidence in my own ability to write my own stories. I felt like I had to take from what, use those traditional pieces. And I love sharing the culture, but I just thought it was so interesting that it took me so long of sharing stories to have the confidence in myself to actually create original pieces or stories from my own life. So it took me a long time to even get to the point of writing my own stories. And so I would say traditional stories are kind of still my first love. But more and more, I just find those moments from my life and I'm like, oh, I really want to share that. Like the stories I'm going to share tonight. Well, you'll hear a song that inspired these stories. And I was just like, I want to put these together and share them. So it comes and goes and just goes with the feeling,
That's so interesting, because I've never thought about that with traditional tales, that someone else has written them, haven't they? So that they're a well-known, well-crafted story. So yeah,
and I don't think I realized when I started that I really was writing my own story. You're taking something and making it your own, but I just looked at it as, I just didn't give myself credit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad you did. Now, same question for you as I asked Jane. February, Valentine's Day and love. Do you have like a special fun moment that you can share with us?
So in my family, I have 4 children, and since they were really, really little, we do something called yarn mazes. And so whatever they're getting for Valentine's Day, whether it's like a gift card or whatever their gift is, it goes at the end of a ball of string. And then I start stringing the string all over the room, and I just make it looks kind of like a laser maze.
Oh, I know.
Out of yarn. And then they all come downstairs, and I have to tell them what their yarn is, and then they spend all this time winding up their yarn ball and complaining about how long their yarn ball is, and oh, I'm faster than you, and they're videotaping it. And but every year, even though I have a 20-year-old, they're like, "Are we doing yarn mazes, Mom?" And
oh, that's so sweet. Oh, I've never heard anybody do that before.
I don't even remember how I started it, but it's tradition.
Oh, wow. Well, I wish I had young kids now. Maybe when not yet. Got grandkids, but they're older than me, but young ones. Anyway, thank you, Holly. That's a really great idea, and I really like it. Okay, sit back, get ready, everybody. Holly's going to tell her story, which is called Forbidden Kisses.
Kussen verboten. Keiner hat es je gesehen, nur hätte das geglaubt. Kussen ist bei mir nicht erlaubt. This is a little ditty that I love from a German rock group called Die Prinzen. And the song is called Forbidden Kisses. And it just says, well, that's the chorus. Forbidden kisses. You wouldn't believe it to look at me, but for me, kissing is forbidden. And as you can tell, I love singing along with these guys. They have really great music, and that song is what inspired these stories that I'm going to share with you tonight. You can decide if they are forbidden or not. So the summer before my 16th birthday, I had yet to have my first kiss. And I was okay with that because I had decided that I was not going to date until I was 16. And in my world, kissing came after dates. I wasn't going to just give away kisses willy-nilly to just anybody. I wanted them to be special. So even though I hadn't had a kiss, it didn't mean I hadn't thought about it, about how handsome the boy would be and romantic the moment would be and how magical it would feel. And that all changed that summer because I was cast in a summer stock theater production. It was called Anasazi, the Ancient Ones. I was a token white settler. I lived in Farmington, New Mexico, and this was a summer production that they did. And I was cast as Annie Tate, and Annie Tate had a stage kiss. So now I was being asked to act out something on stage in front of hundreds of people that I had never actually done before. I was anxious and apprehensive and excited and anticipating. All those emotions rolled into one. Isn't that how it is for these wonderful females? So the first night of rehearsals, I walked into the Farmington Civic Center where the cast was meeting, and I surveyed the room trying to decipher who True Gibbons was. He was the one Annie Tate was supposed to kiss. I looked around and I thought, he looks pretty nice. He's got a nice look about him. I wouldn't mind kissing him. And then there was, I hope it's not him. But I wasn't kept in suspense for too long because Marilyn, the director, she was directing everyone for this big group scene and giving out the blocking, and she called, "True Gibbons, Annie Tate, meet me right here." She proceeded to tell us that True was going to enter from one side of the stage and I would enter from the other, and we would meet here at the front of the stage. She said, "You stand about 3 feet apart, bend at the hips. Your lips don't even have to touch. The audience will get the drift. Yes. The children will be running around you singing, 'True kiss Danny, true kiss Danny,' and then you'll go on your merry way." And I thought, what kind of kiss is that? It's not a kiss at all. No lips touching. But we practiced this no kiss kiss all of rehearsal, and into opening night, we performed this show 4 nights a week, all summer long. And to this day, it is still one of my most beloved summers, because I was in just 1 or 2 scenes of the play, and the rest of the time I was backstage hanging out with True Gibbons and getting more and more of a crush for this tall, blonde, handsome. It was kind of crush at first sight, I tell you. Until one night, just like every other night, I put on my red and green striped dress and my matching bonnet, and when the time came, I ran up the hill to the stage. It was an outdoor amphitheater with sandstone bluffs as the background and juniper trees and pinon trees framing the stage. The sun set behind the audience every night, casting that red and orange glow onto the stage. It was so picturesque. But the cast would just descend on the stage, and the music would be going, and our scene would begin. True entered from his side, I entered from my side, 3 feet apart, bend at the hips. It was not the romantic moment that I had anticipated, because we had 500 witnesses. But it still felt magical. Oh, True had kissed me. I was on cloud 9. After that kissing moment, we had a square dance number. And while my petticoats were flying and my legs were kicking, I don't think my feet touched the ground. And even when I was exiting at the end of the scene, walking off stage, I was floating. Until True came up behind me and he said, "Holly, about what happened on stage, I am so sorry." I was pretty sure that the guy gave you your first magical kiss was not supposed to apologize for kissing you. Now, I totally get that he was just being a gentleman, because that is not how we had practiced it, and it's not necessarily what was supposed to happen. But it did bring me back down to earth. I will forever, ever remember that first kiss, though, and the 500 witnesses. Oh. Well, after I did Anasazi the Ancient Ones for a couple of seasons and graduated from high school and went to Germany as an exchange student, where I fell in love with Die Prinzen, I came home, and there I was back in Farmington, New Mexico, where I grew up, but I had to find my place in the world again, because all of my friends had moved away, gone off to college, gotten married, and, well, where did that put me? I found myself at a young single adult activity at my church. So there I was in this cultural hall, surrounded by all of these other young men and women, and I found myself once again scanning the room, not for prospective true Gibbons, but just for somebody who might be interesting to get to know a little bit more. And this was way before the days of swiping left and swiping right. So I simply looked around and said, "Oh, look at his smile. I would totally like to talk to him." And if he walks towards me, I'm turning around and walking the other way. And then, oh, he is so cute and he looks super interesting. I think I would really like to talk to him. And it just so happened that that boy that I thought looked so interesting, he must have thought I looked interesting too, because before too long, we were actually introducing ourselves to each other. And we found out that we'd actually gone to high school together. But David was a football jock and ran around with that popular crowd. And I was a choir nerd and ran around with the completely opposite crowd. But now that we were out of those high school stereotype boundaries, there we were, getting to know each other and realizing that maybe we didn't seem to have a lot in common, but we really enjoyed each other's company. So a first Friday night date to see George of the Jungle turned into a Saturday night, second date game night, and a Sunday afternoon walk in the park along the Animas River, where we held hands for the first time. And before I knew it, a week had passed, and this boy who I hadn't known a week before, who was also tall and blonde, blue-eyed, and very handsome, had become my favorite part of every day. It was a bit of a fairy tale because he brought me flowers, he picked me up and took me to my classes, he liked my parents. And so there we sat in his truck at the end of another date after a week of hanging out together. And it was in that in-between moment of the date's over, but I don't want to say goodnight yet. How long can we string this out? And we sat across the truck cab from each other, and David told me about his hopes and dreams, and I shared some of mine. And then the energy in the cab changed a little bit. And I could tell he was looking at my lips and thinking about a kiss. And then when I knew that he was looking at my lips and thinking about a kiss, I couldn't stop thinking about a kiss. And I didn't know what kind of sign I wanted to give him. I mean, I wasn't opposed to kissing, perhaps, but I didn't want to seem too forward. But then before I knew it, that gap between us was getting smaller and smaller. And before I knew it, there he was kissing me. And David shared a bit more than saliva with me. And while our lips and everything else were intertwined, I had to decide what I was going to do about this, because frankly, he was moving way too fast. We'd only known each other a week, and this is not where I anticipated this relationship being at this moment in time. So do I play it cool and be the cool girlfriend that wants what he wants? Or do I be true to myself and let him know that I wasn't really okay with that? And if I did choose that second choice, what was he going to do about it? All these thoughts were going through my head in that split moment of intertwinedness. So when he unlatched, I said, "David, that was a little bit more of a kiss than I am comfortable with at this stage in our relationship." And then it was his turn. And he looked at me and he said, "Holly, I am so sorry. I would never want to do anything that would make you uncomfortable. We can totally go at your pace. And he was true to his word. We dated for over a year and we learned a lot of things from each other about relationships and communication. But truly, the lesson I learned in that truck cab that night, that I can stand up for myself and be true to who I am, and that any guy worth having around would be okay with that. Well, that's a gift that David gave me that I will keep forever. It took a little while, but I did finally meet and marry my forever kissing partner, John, my husband. And would you believe that we still, in our own homes, find ourselves breaking the rules? It'll be after dinner, everyone's helping clean up. John gets this little glint in his eye. He pulls me away from the sink and whisks me into his arms, waltzing around our kitchen island singing, "I could have danced all night." And if mom and dad stop cleaning up, well, then, of course, that's the ticket for everyone to stop cleaning up, and a dance party starts. And that ends with John taking me into a dip with a big... And that's when I get it, or we get it. The kids say, "No kissing, no kissing allowed. Take it upstairs, get a room." Who made them boss? And do you think I listened to them? No way. Because I think the greatest gift that a parent can give their child is the security that their parents love each other. Kussen verboten, Kussen verboten. Keiner hat es je gesehen, nor hätte das geglaubt. Kussen ist bei mir nicht erlaubt.
Oh, that was great, Holly. I really, really enjoyed that. How fabulous. And I totally agree. It's a really good thing to give your kids a good, model of what it is. And I love it that my husband's really romantic. And he actually was my first kiss, even though they had a bit of a gap in the middle. But and it's just lovely to be more expressive, I think, with the kids. And the more they go, the more we used to do it. Lovely. Thank you very much, Holly. Very good. I want to give a shout out to somebody in the audience, Ashton Cynthia Clark, who's from Pasadena. Thank you very much. You're doing lovely, lovely commenting, and we really appreciate it. Carry on. Others take Ashton Cynthia's lead, please. Right then, on to our next storyteller. Now, our next teller is actually completely new to 6 Feet Apart. So I'm so thrilled to have her on our show, because it's always lovely to find new storytellers. Jennifer Frandsen describes herself as a one-woman musical comedy act stumbling her way through life, which is hilarious. She's lived a very interesting life, though. She's a Navy veteran, a stroke survivor. She speaks three languages. Blimey, I can barely get my lips around one. And she's lived in 4 different countries. She also designs and makes costumes for cosplay, film and theatre, which I think is like a superpower, because I can barely sew on a button. She's had the best blue hair as well. So please welcome to our virtual stage, Jennifer Frandsen. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, how are you? Are you on mute?
Sorry, I almost forgot to unmute. Oh,
it's what we all do. It's the whole thing. I forget to unmute all the time.
I'm
How
here.
are you,
I'm glad
Jennifer?
to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's so delightful to have you on. And just tell us where you are in the world.
I am in Florida, wonderful Florida, where we're safe from this cold front sweeping the country.
Yes, I know. We're about to have snow in California. Unbelievable. I know. Anyway, lovely.
Everybody stay warm out there.
Well, we can't be. It's not too bad. I mean, it's really California. Anyway, let's get back onto you. So you design and make costumes for cosplay, don't you? And in particular, you like to play the fairy godmother at Ren fairs. So why didn't you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, I started doing home economics in Saudi Arabia at 11 and just loved sewing and creating and acting and singing and escaping into fantasy. Made my kids costumes as they were young and growing up until they didn't want to be in costumes anymore. And then I made my own and started going to cosplay conventions because I didn't have anyone else to make costumes for, so I started making them for myself. And then I got to good enough that I could make them for other people again and started working with film and theater and for Club Med and SeaWorld. And I've had some really fun jobs doing costuming all over the place. And this is what happens when you lock a costume designer away with an ukulele for COVID. You get a fairy godmother. Because basically it's the same job, just different title.
Excellent. My son is really into cosplay and makes these really elaborate outfits and 3D prints himself stuff, and it's the whole bit. I mean, he's really
I'll
good.
be honest, I can't keep up with the things they're coming out with these days. I have to hire them to do the crazy stuff. That's why I'm going into design, so I can hire them to do the stuff they're so good at.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the things he's made out of a 3D printer are amazing. Anyway, so
really
you're going to be
mirrors.
telling to us as a fairy godmother, but before we get there, you're going to have the same question. February, love, Valentine's Day. What special moment can you tell us about?
I was thinking about a story when I was about 13, 14 years old. We had just moved from Dhahran, Saudi Arabia to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I was starting a brand new high school as a freshman, and I didn't know anyone. I was so lost. And I was scared. I hadn't been in American high school, and this was Louisiana, and they were just coming out of the segregation. So they were busing us all the way down into the city. And I was so scared. And I got home one day on Valentine's Day, and there was a flower arrangement waiting for me, and it said, "From your secret admirer." And it looked like a sundae. It was one of those sundae shaped glass with the carnations. And the next day I went to school and I was so excited. Everyone I looked at, were they my secret admirer? Was it you? Was it them? And people would sit near me and I would strike up conversations. And before you knew it, I found my place in the school and made friends, and came to find out about 3 years later, my mom had sent me the flower arrangement.
Oh,
And it completely changed my whole life. At
oh,
least
that's
at that
so
school.
lovely. That's such a lovely story, and bless her, your mum. And how nice that she didn't tell you straight away either.
Oh no, it took years before she finally told me.
Yeah.
I actually still had that sundae glass until I was about 20. It meant so much to me.
Oh, what a lovely gift she gave you. That's so sweet. Lovely. Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer. Really nice to get to know you. So everyone sit back, and Jennifer's going to tell her story, which is First Kiss Free.
Hello, beloved. I am your fairy godmother, and I'm here to tell you a fairy tale for today's kids. Because fairy tales are how we pass on the lessons that we want our children to learn with laughter and magic and music. And this lesson is called First Kiss Free. Once upon a time, there was a lovely little kingdom with a king and a queen and two princesses. The youngest princess and the older princess were both beautiful and graceful and elegant. And the youngest princess loved everything about being a princess. She was charming and she remembered everyone's names, and she got along with everyone. She kept up with all the court intrigues. But her older sister, who was the heir to the throne, really didn't get along with people that well, and she just didn't know how to pull off what her little sister could. And she would be awkward, and she would have a trouble remembering names, and she was always so scared she'd say the wrong thing that she just wouldn't say anything, and then they would think she was rude or cold or standoffish or mean, and she was just shy and scared. And so she spent a lot of her time in the gardens, because what made her feel happy and what made her feel comfortable was planting things and growing things. And so as they grew up, the little sister did more of the stuff with the royalty in the court, and the bigger sister spent most of her time playing in the garden and growing. And she even designed a greenhouse that they built and had a little trickling fountain in it. And that was where she would go when she'd had enough of dealing with all the people in the court. And one day, her mom and dad sat her down and they told her that they really needed to have a serious discussion because she was getting old enough to start thinking about getting married. And so they needed to start looking at the princesses in the neighboring kingdoms and the bloodlines. And it went on. And she just couldn't think anymore. And she was having a hard time breathing. And she just got up and she said, "May I please be excused? I need to go to the restroom." And they said, "Okay." And she ran to her garden and she went to her little greenhouse and she sat down near the fountain and she just started crying because she couldn't do this. She didn't know. Oh my God, they wanted her to marry someone and she had to figure all this out. And as she's sitting there with her head in her hands, just wailing, she hears this voice go, "Hey, princess, what you crying about? What you got to worry about so bad?" And she jumps up and she spins around and she's looking and she doesn't see anyone. She goes, "Hello?" And there's nothing. So she sits back down next to the waterfall. She goes, "Oh." And she goes, "What's so bad? Why don't you talk to me about it?" She looks up and there's this little bright red and green frog sitting on the edge of the waterfall. And she goes, "Is that you?" "Yeah, it's me. What you think? The bush is talking to you?" She goes, "You're a talking frog." And he goes, "Well, yeah." She goes, "I've heard stories about talking frogs. I know this. You're dangerous. You are not to be trusted. Frogs who talk are bad." And he goes, Yeah. We get all the bad rap I hear. But what you crying about? You never answer my question." And she goes, "Well, it's just being a princess isn't easy, you know. They want so much out of you. You got to be perfect all the time. You got to remember everybody's names. You got to be smiling. You got to curtsy. You got to curtsy this person." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, so hard. What you gonna do about it?" She goes, "I don't know what I'm gonna do about it." He goes, "Well, I can help you because talking frog, I am magic after all. If you want to put aside all those rumors and hearsay, I got something that could help you." And the princess goes, "I've heard this before. I know. All right, what's your story?" And he goes, Nothing bad. Promise you don't have to do anything crazy. Like my kiss. All you got to do is kiss me, and I make you feel so good you won't care about nothing. You'll be able to float through those meetings. You will be charming and pretty and gracious. All you got to do is give me a kiss. And first kiss is absolutely free, just to prove the point." And she goes, "I'm not falling for this. No, sir. I know talking frogs, magical talking frogs, are bad. I want you out of my greenhouse. I'm leaving now." So she went back to the castle. She sat in her room. She said, "Well, at least I'm not upset about the princess anymore. But now there's a magical frog in my greenhouse. I don't know what to do." And she said, and it's probably not really going to work. That kiss wouldn't work anyways. It's made up. That's all nonsense. But the next day, when she had to face the meetings with her parents again, and they wanted to meet in the library to go over the genealogy, by the end of the meeting, she was thinking about the frog. And she thought, well, what if his kiss could help? Because I don't know how to do this. I can't tell him. I mean, I can't tell my dad I don't want to rule the kingdom. What's he going to think? It's my whole life. This is what they had me for. Maybe I should try just that one first kiss free. No, I'm not going to go back to the greenhouse. So that night, she stayed safely in her room. But the next morning, they summoned her to the library again. And she's like, "Tell him I have to go to the greenhouse first." And she goes to the greenhouse and she sees the frog. She says, "Hello." And he goes, "Been thinking about it, haven't you, huh?" And she goes, "Yeah, maybe." She goes, "First one's absolutely free and there's no obligation, right? I don't ever have to do this again. I just want to test it. That's all. First kiss free, right?" He goes, "First kiss free, baby. Just pucker up and give me a smooch." And so she reached down, she picked up the little frog and she said, "I can't believe I'm doing this. What am I doing? What have I come to?" And he goes, "Baby, give me a kiss. Lay it on me." And so she goes, "Okay." She goes, and she puts the frog back. And, ooh, that felt pretty good. I was kind of loose now. It ain't so bad. And you walk back up the castle, go to the library. This one's got a lot of gold. That one's got the land. By the end of the day, she's smiling. Her family's so happy. Everybody's so happy. Her little sister's happy. She's telling her about the intrigue. And the princess is like, this is kind of nice. And she floats away to bed at night. And when she wakes up the next morning, it's not so floaty anymore. And she tries her best to get through the whole day. But by the afternoon, she's back down at the greenhouse again. And she says, "Hello, Mr. Frog." He says, "Hey, baby, you're back for more, aren't you?" And she says, "Okay, well, I know you said the first kiss was free and we didn't really talk about this that much, but how much does the second kiss cost?" And he says, "Oh, baby, I'll never charge you more than you can afford to pay. I promise. It's simple. I just don't want to live in this greenhouse anymore. You got a castle, you got a bedroom. Build me a little tank in your bedroom. I'll just come and stay in your bedroom. And plus, think about it. I'll be close. You won't have to go all the way to the greenhouse to get a kiss." And she says, "And what about the next kiss?" And he says, "Tell you what, I'll give you a whole month full of kisses. One kiss a day. We're moving into your bedroom. That's all you got to do. Give me a place in your bedroom, one kiss a day for a month." And she says, "Well, they know I like plants. And it's kind of going to look a little weird to have a frog in my room, but you're right. It's not more than I can pay. I mean, it's not a lot, really, and it really did help. So, okay." And he goes, "All right, baby, smooch me again." And so she puckered up, and she picked up the little frog. She smooched him, and then she put him in her pocket. You know, so what if she had a frog in her bedroom? Who's going to care? She's a princess, right? She's going to be the queen. She'll have a frog if she wants to have a frog. She floats back up to the castle, and the whole next month, one kiss every morning, it's fine. Well, for most of the month. But by the end of the month, it's kind of getting to where that kiss just doesn't really last that long anymore. And so the start of the next month, she goes to the frog and she picks him up and he goes, no kiss till we talk. No. She goes, "But I just want a kiss, please. How much is it going to cost?" And he goes, "Not so much. I just want you to carry me around in your pocket. I want to hear all the gossip and intrigue and all the good stuff." She goes, "That's really going to look weird, but okay. But you got to give me another whole month of kisses, 2 a day." And he says, "Gosh, you're a bossy girl, aren't you? You're a hard bargainer. I guess I'm going to have to give in to you. All right, give me a big one, lady." And at the end of the next month, she's up to 2 kisses a day, and they're starting not to be enough. But her parents are starting to notice that something's off because she isn't spending any of her time in her greenhouse, which used to make her so happy. And she doesn't care about eating anymore. All she can think about is when she's going to get her next kiss. And so her dad, the king, sits her down and he says, "We have to decide on who you're going to marry." And she says, "I can't do this right now, Daddy. I just can't do this right now. I'll come back tomorrow." She goes to the room and she looks at the frog and she says, I need more kisses. I need more kisses." And he goes, "Well, baby, we're at the end of the month. It's time to negotiate again. Now, I know this is going to sound a little crazy, but I got an idea. Your dad wants you to get married. How about you marry me?" And the princess goes, "I can't marry a frog. Are you crazy? My dad's definitely going to know something's up." And he goes, "Well, no kisses for you." And she goes, "But I need the kisses." And he says, "Well, introduce me to your dad. We'll tell him you got a thing for me. And that's just the truth, right? You got a thing for me. You need me, girl." And so she takes her little frog and she goes to her father, the king, and she says, "Daddy, we got to have a talk. I've got a problem. I've got this." And she held out the little frog. And her dad, the king, looked at the frog in her hand. He goes, "You have a frog." And she goes, "It's a magical talking frog." And the frog went, "Yep," and licked his eyeball. And the king said, "It's a magical talking frog." She goes, "It is, Dad. I swear it's a magic. Say something. Just say something." And the frog just sat in her hand. And she said, "But I have to kiss him. I have to kiss him a couple times a day because it makes me happy. And if I kiss the frog, I'm happy and I can deal with being the princess." And the king says, "Why don't you just hand me the frog? Just give me the frog." And she goes, "No, I can't give you the frog. he goes, I'm just going to study the frog. I'm just going to study it. I promise you can hold it. I'm just going to call my wise men in. And he summoned all of his magicians and his bookkeepers, and they researched the frog, and they found out that it was a highly addictive, toxic substance that she had now gotten herself addicted to. And he called forth the fairy godmother from the kingdom, and he said, Fairy godmother, I have to make a wish. Will you please, please free my daughter from the frog's kiss? And the fairy godmother said, I want to. I really, really, really want to. But your daughter has to make the wish, because until she wants to be free of the frog's kiss, she'll never be free. And so the father of the king said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Twice a day at first, I will let you into a room with the frog, and you will be able to kiss him once, and that's it. But that's it. We're going to control. And so they tried that. But it didn't work, because the princess had already gotten so used to so many kisses a day that she started going into withdrawal, and she got shaky, and she got scared, and she got sick, and she was throwing up. And so finally, her father, the king, gave her the frog back because she couldn't do without it. And one day, and she's in her room, her little sister comes in, and her little sister says, honey, what's wrong? You are so sick. And is there something I can do to help? And the older princess says, no, just go away. You don't have any idea what I'm going through. It's all so easy for you. It's just so freaking easy for you. And she stormed out of the room and left the little sister in the room with a frog. And she realized that about half an hour later. And she ran back to the room. And just as she got to the door, she heard the frog going, promise you, princess, first kiss free, no obligation. And then you won't have to worry about what's wrong with your sister. It won't matter. You'll be happy too. And the princess threw open the door and she said, no more. You are not going to do to her what you've done to me. And she saw herself reflected in the mirror, and she realized she had lost so much weight, and her hair was stringy and her eyes looked dead. And she saw her sister so healthy and happy. And she knew that if she didn't do something, this frog was going to be a part of their life forever. And her little sister would see her dealing with it. And so she called the fairy godmother. She said, I'm ready. I want to make the wish. I want to be free of the frogs and poison. And the fairy godmother said, okay, if that's your wish, we'll make it happen. Now, here's where I get my part of the story, because another fairy godmother would probably tell you that they made the wish and everything was happy. But this is a fairy tale for today. And today you've got to wish, and then you've got to work. And she made the wish to be free of the frog's poison, and the fairy godmother gave her the strength, but they had to talk, and she had to finally tell her family what was troubling her so that she could get it out. And the family talked, and they realized that she didn't have to be the queen. They had the younger princess who was already ready. And so the younger princess stepped up to take the throne and be the next in line, while the older princess went through months of rehabilitation and recovery. And every day was a struggle, but she found her garden again, and she planted flowers, and she planted the seeds of a new future. And eventually she got her wish, and she was free of the frog's addictive kiss. And although it took a lot of work, they all lived happily ever after. The end. Thank you.
Oh, that was such a great story. That was hilarious, but what a lovely undertone meaning to it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Jen. Lovely to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I love the bit, like my co-host Regina, who I'm not letting into the screen just at the moment, she's been popping things in the chat that have been hilarious. Like she thought your frog, which you did so brilliantly, should have a cigar in its mouth, and it was like a W.C. Fields frog.
You
and
remember
then,
the old cartoon with the dancing frog on the desk?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my mind went when I thought of, hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Oh, that's fabulous. It was so good. Really, really good. Thank you. And yeah, as Regina says again, you've got a 12-step frog program. I like that.
Takes 12 steps, yes.
Yeah. Okay, on with the story. Thank you, Jennifer. That was wonderful. Now we got one other plucky soul in YouTube who's put their name through it. It's Melinda Kimlinger. What a fabulous name, I have to say. I do love your name. So well done. Thank you for putting your name in the chat and for putting in some chat. So come on, the rest of you. Tell us where you're from and who you are. Okay, we're on our last storytellers. You haven't got long. So our fourth and final performer of the night is the dashing and delightful Ty Fance. I first met him on Better Said Than Done. Don't tell Jessica I said that. And I've been wanting to have him on our show ever since. Ty now lives down in LA, but it was originally from Texas. And he's an author, a producer, hilarious comedian, and a storyteller. He's performed on many, many, many shows and festivals. And he also produced a long-running storytelling show called Off My Head Storytelling. Isn't that a great name? Off My Head Storytelling, which no doubt prompted him to write a book, which is autobiographical, lots of short stories called Off My Head and Over the Fence, which is an even better name. So lovely, lovely. So pleased that Ty took time out of his incredibly busy schedule to come on to our show. So please give a huge, warm, virtual welcome to Ty Fance. Hello, Ty. How are you?
I am fantastic, and I'm still dry. It's gonna rain, but I'm still dry right now.
Oh, good. Well, we've been having massive winds and knocked all our power out yesterday. Thank goodness it wasn't today, otherwise we wouldn't be having this show. So
wow.
Oh my God.
So true, so true, so true.
Yeah. Now you've been actually having live in-person shows, haven't you, down in LA? How's that going with COVID and everything?
Yeah, it's actually going pretty well, and we've adjusted apparently to what it takes to be in a group, together. A lot of people still have some protocols for wearing masks, but the audiences are coming back. We've actually have quite a few sold out shows, which just gives you that feeling, and it's really interesting because we're doing Zoom so often. It has taken a little bit of time to get used to the live crowds again, but I do enjoy them.
Yeah, no, I've been doing a few live in person, and it's just exciting. It's fun to do, and I love doing the Zoom and online shows because it's just you don't have to get in the car. You only have to get dressed from the top up.
Right. I traveled all the way from my living room.
Yeah, I know, exactly, and we can have you on our show without flying you up here, so that's wonderful.
Yes, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. And then, Ty, the second question, it's February, love and romance and Valentine's Day. Yeah. What special story have you got?
Well, I think the most interesting thing that I could bring up right at the moment was how I met my wife, which was on this ski trip that I had never skied before. So I was on this trip for the first time. And at the time, I kind of categorized myself as a comedy guy, funny guy. So on the trip, it was a bus trip. I was in the back entertaining, just sharing and trying to be as interesting as possible while my wife sat right in front of me and paying no mind to me at all, just doing her own thing. But at one point, I guess she'd had enough because she turns around to me and asks, "Are you going to talk the whole trip?" And I was stunned. I was stunned because I'd never had anyone say that to me that direct. And she was beautiful. So I was thinking maybe I could try to turn this around. And it took a while, maybe like a couple of years, but finally she came around. But that was pretty shocking when she said that to me, and funny.
Oh, bless her. That's really cool. And I love the fact that you didn't take offense. You just thought, I'm going to have her. I will marry that woman.
Yeah. Sure, there was some ego in there somewhere.
No, surely not.
A little bit.
Tiny bit. Well, I think that's a lovely memory. And I have to say that I'm glad you didn't stop talking because then we get to enjoy you. So sit back, everyone, because Ty's now going to tell us his story, The Ride.
Okay. My dad used to tip his hat up and smoke Pall Mall cigarettes. He'd keep one pursed in the corner of his mouth when he talked to you. He wore these black frame glasses with thick lenses. I'd like to borrow those, especially on like hot days to go outside and burn pieces of paper or ants. He would roll his sleeves up just past his elbow with his forearms, the might of it, full displayed. And when he worked, he drove a cab late nights. So most of the days he slept, mornings, late afternoons. Consequently, we didn't really spend much quality time together. Most of the time I saw him, he was laying there on the couch. And he never really talked about himself. He never really shared his emotions or his thoughts. But the way he spoke, when he spoke, I knew I better pay attention. Boy, what I tell you about running the house? The next time you run in the house, I'm gonna whoop your behind. If you don't do your chores, I'm gonna whoop your behind. If you ever get in trouble with the law, what am I gonna do? Whoop my behind? No. I'm gonna kill you. I was 5 years old, and I made it my business to stay out of trouble. Matter of fact, when my dad yelled at me, that really hurt for a while. When he would whoop me, that hurt also for a while. But what really, really got me was what he did when he was really disappointed in me. He would just stare and not say a word. So I was a pretty good kid. I did my homework, I did my chores. I was in the house before the street lights turned on. I said, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. You know, I did pretty much the things I was supposed to do. And if I had the nerve to do anything that might be considered bad, I made sure he didn't find out about it. Well, if it was in my control. So that brings me to a point when I'm 11 years old and I'm hanging out with my friends. And we decide to go to Montgomery Ward's and hang out in the sporting goods department. We really didn't have a lot of money, but we'd like to go look at stuff. And we checking out the bicycles and the batting equipment for baseball, you know, BB guns, which are my favorite. And we happen to be passing by the hockey equipment when one of my friends says to me, Ty, man, take one of those hockey pucks. I'm like, what? I don't want no hockey puck. What the heck am I gonna do with a hockey puck? Man, go ahead and take the hockey puck. No, I'm not taking no hockey puck. I don't need no stupid hockey puck. You scared. I'm not scared. I just don't, you scared. Well, I took the hockey puck and I put it in the front of my BVDs, which made it very difficult to run, let alone walk. So after we do this, we decide to leave. Now, we can't run, but we definitely look like we stole something. As we meandered through the store, going through the aisles, we're getting close to the exit when everybody ahead of me, all my friends, stop, turn around, and book in my direction, running full speed. When they passed me, I could see now what got their attention, because at the end of the aisle, blocking it, was the biggest man I had ever seen. This guy weighed about 300 pounds. He was wearing black pants, white shirt, and over his breast pocket said security. My little brain puts this together and I'm moving, but I can't really stop. I hobble to a stop. Turn around, and as I begin to try to sprint away, Hulk security reaches out with his big hand, grabs me by my collar, lifts me up on my tippy toes, spins me around and says, where do you think you going, little man? Nowhere? You got that right. And he proceeds to march me over to the security office, which was this really empty office. There's not much going on in there. There was a steel gray chair, a gray table. Both these are made out of metal. On the wall was the old school analog clock, you know, with the hands on it, that ticked really loudly. And it was cold in the room. I can't even say the word, excruciating cold. I think it was set on frostbite. So I'm sitting there shivering, and the security guard walks around to the table and sits on the opposite side. At which time he says, "Let me have it." I'm like, "Have what?" "You know what I'm talking about." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." "Look, either you give it to me or I'm gonna get up, come over there and get it out myself." At which time I fished out the puck and just slammed it on the table. So he said, "Now, you know I'm gonna have to call your dad." I'm like, "Oh man, don't call my dad. Don't call my dad. Call anybody but my dad. Don't call my dad." "No, I gotta call your dad. What's your number?" So I reluctantly give him my phone number. It's amazing that I actually remembered it because I was so nervous. And then he gets up and lumbers over to the little door that goes into the adjacent office. And there's a little window there that you can see him in the other room on the phone. I see him pick it up and he begins to dial, rotary. And as he's talking, he looks at me, turns away, looks, and then looks down, looks back, and then hangs up the phone. And I'm in this room all alone at the time. And all I'm thinking about is what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me now? You know, I didn't have to do it. No one in my zip code plays hockey. What the hell was I thinking? I mean, now I know, peer pressure. But then, so I'm sitting in the room and I'm really, really, really panicking. It's cold. I'm scared. And about 10 to 15 minutes later, the door to the room opens. And standing in the door with his forearms crossed against his chest and his eyes laser beam on me was my dad, all 5'8" and 185 pounds of it. And he was not happy. He'd stared at me before, but this particular stare was piercing. And when he was satisfied that he had touched my soul, he just turned around and walked out. And I freaked. I just stood up and I ran out the door after him. I caught up to him in the hallway. And we walked side by side, but we never looked at each other or said anything. And I took 2 steps to his every one. We walked out, down the steps to his car, a 1968 Plymouth Fury. He just opened the door and got in very quickly and slammed the key into the ignition. I opened the door and jumped in. Without putting on his seatbelt, he just started the car up. I quickly snapped my seatbelt, and then we accelerated from the curb. So much so that when he pulled out, I was thrown back into the chair. Fortunately, I did have the belt on. And we just drove down the street in complete silence for a long, long, agonizing time. I mean, the only sounds I heard was the whistling wind through the cracks of the window, the steady hum of that V8 motor propelling us down the interstate, and the rhythmic rumblings of the 4 Firestones against the asphalt. And I just knew this was going to be the time that I was going to get it. And I sat there for a long time, not really feeling anything worthy of being around Pops. I was really I just felt I let them down. So I'm sitting there and I finally just get the courage to say to him, Dad, you gonna kill me? He just looked straight ahead, never took his eyes off the road to smoke. Dad, Dad, you gonna whoop me? No, boy, I ain't gonna do nothing to you. I figure you done had enough going on sitting in that cool ass place and all by yourself. At that moment, I kind of relaxed, thinking, man, I just got away with something. And I remember sitting back in the chair, even got comfortable enough to roll the window down and stick my hand out and let the wind move it up and down. And then something terrifying came across my mind. And I pulled my hand back in and I sat up and I looked at Dad and I said, well, Mama gonna kill me when you tell her. He's, I'm not gonna tell her. And I believed him. At that moment, I really just settled in and thought, okay. So I sat back in the chair and I looked over and looked ahead and I thought, wow. And I just sat there and watched my dad as he drove me home. And years later, you know, I reflected about that and I thought about it. And I came up with the idea that that was the first time I ever spent that much time alone with my dad, that long drive home. And it was the first time he protected me. It was actually the first time he made me feel safe.
Oh, Ty, what a really, really lovely and moving story. Your dad sounds like quite a character.
Yes. Yes. He's
But
quite
amazing.
the guy.
Sometimes less is more, isn't it?
You know, I had a summary that said, when words fail you, action speaks volume. And so he never said much, but he showed me a lot of stuff.
That's
afterwards.
amazing. Amazing. Some dads have really got that knack. Well, that was a beautiful story. Thank you. And what a lovely, lovely way to end our fantastic show. Now, I want to just thank all our tellers. So I'm going to bring them all back one by one and we'll all be on the stage together because I want to find out what else they've got coming up because I'm sure you want to hear them all again. Excuse me. So first of all, let's bring back our first teller, Jane Dorfman. Hi, Jane. Just so enjoyed your storytelling. Really stupendous. So tell me what you've got coming up.
Well, thank you. You and I both have a show, Moonshine Stories on the 8th. No, on the 7th.
We've got a show on the 8th. So
I hope you come on the 8th. I have another show on the 8th. I'm doing The Grapevine with Sam Payne, and that should be interesting. And that's coming right up. And yeah, I should get ready for that.
Lovely.
And then I have an actual in-person school visit, which will be interesting.
Oh, fantastic. When's the last time you did that?
For school? Oh, a couple of years.
Wow.
What else is interesting is it's a small school, and I'm going to be telling to 4-year-olds to 10-year-olds. That's a big spread.
Yes, that is.
Yeah, so I have to think about that one some more. And then I'm doing stories for St. Patrick's Day on the 15th at a community center. And I have told there in person before, but they're not children and you don't have to worry about their behavior or anything.
So where will people be able to find out about that? On your website?
They'll be able to find out about some of them. The school's not on the website, but the other ones will be. Yeah.
Lovely. And just remind us of your website.
It's attached to voicesintheglen.org. And then I'm one of the tellers. You drop down.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Jane. Delightful. Well, I'm
Thank
looking forward to performing with you with Moonshine Stories.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's bring up Holly as well. Holly Robison. Hi, Holly. And thank you. So wonderful, your story. So tell us what you've got coming up next. Oh, you're muted, Holly.
I am excited because I have some live stuff coming up locally. The Portland Storytelling Guild does a great concert season every year. And my show's coming up next month on the 4th. And so if you're in the area, you can go to Artichoke Music Community, but also it will be on the Artichoke Music Community website streaming. So that's kind of fun. And I'm going to be up with the South Sound Story Guild in April in person. So that'll be really nice. And I guess just I have a YouTube channel with lots of videos that are meant to inspire creativity in everyone. So
lovely. Thank you, Holly. And let's bring up Jennifer. Jennifer, you want to unmute and tell us what you've got coming up next? Oh, you're not here yet. You'll be coming soon. He's lost you.
There we go. Hi. Well, I don't have anything soon because I'm just finishing the remodel on my house and I haven't booked anything other than things that I can do from here. So I'm looking forward to getting all the opportunities that are going to come my way. But in Dragon Con this year, I will be doing a panel on the importance of inclusivity in fairy tales for every hero. And I will also be performing with my ukulele in between panels. That's what I do. I'm a volunteer for the diversity panel, diversity in speculative fiction. And then I will be performing at the Carolina Ren Fair in October and November. 8 weekends, 3 shows a day. Come see me do my songs and stories at the Renaissance Fair. And my website is I don't have to do that. Look So Good, but the so is spelled SEW. So look lovely. So good.
Wonderful.
Just a little play on words.
Well, I'm sure after your performance tonight, you'll be getting lots of other offers.
I'm open for all of the opportunities coming my way.
Excellent. Well, we'll definitely have you back another time. And then last but not least, Ty Fance. Hello, Ty. Tell us what you've got. We'll get you there. And yes, tell us what you've got coming up.
Well, thanks for asking. Interesting enough, I'm taking a little bit of a low profile right now because I decided to go to studio and record some of my stories for my own the ability to distribute them and to kind of put them in a kind of a catalog. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, though, on April 23rd, and it's on my website, I will have a show. It's going to be a Zoom performance at a place called it's produced by Tales by the Sea, Ann Buxby. You guys might know her. It's going to be a pretty nice show. And up until that date, I don't have anything else. So if someone's producing and they'd love to invite me, I'd be more than happy to do something.
And why wouldn't they? And you can find out more tyfance.com.
Yes.
Lovely. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you all so much. And now I suppose I have to bring up my co-producer, Regina. Don't normally let her on very much, but we're going to bring her on.
Yay, Regina.
Hello. I know Claire lets me out every once in a while. Mark gets me up on the screen. There I am. Well, I'm here to talk about the upcoming shows at 6 Feet Apart Productions. And if you happen to want to do an open mic, we do open mics a little different. Tickets for storytelling are guaranteed spots. So if you buy a storyteller ticket, you are guaranteed. We draw the names out of the hat, but you're guaranteed to tell the story. And there it is. The grass is greener. That's our theme for March 8th. And I'm the MC, and Claire doesn't get to talk very much at all. So if you want to have a little bit of me, come to that show. Those are always very fun. You can find out more at sfapshows.com. So, and after that, we have the Bay Area Storytelling Festival. We're very excited. We resurrected that last year and we're coming back again. We've got Ingrid Nixon, Tim Araneta, Kirk Waller, and also Antonio Horsha. So we're very excited about this, and it will be streaming as well. So if you're not in town, you can certainly attend virtually. There'll be workshops. There's going to be a youth showcase. So again, we're very excited about that. So that's what we've got coming up. We'll be doing an anniversary show in March. We haven't quite decided what that's going to be, so stay tuned. But we'll have Corey Rosen will be singing yet another song. Corey does a song for us every year for our anniversary, so he'll be doing that again. Anyway, lots coming up, and I just want to say thank you to all of the tellers, because it was a wonderful show. Very much enjoyed all of it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excellent stories. Love them. Thank you. And thank you very much to my husband, the tech guru, because without whom we couldn't do this. And thank you to, let's Thank you to everybody on YouTube who watched and commented. And we want to thank our backstage audience, in particular Misty Matel, because she is the world's best commenter ever. We think we might be hiring her to comment because she's so amazing. So thank you to our backstage audience. Now we're going to stay and have a little bit of a short after party, and we will see you next time at our open mic. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.